Good morning and welcome to our very first FutureScape virtual. I must admit, it's not quite the event we anticipated this time last year. FutureScape was moving to excel in London, the UK's premium exhibition venue, which allowed us to house more exhibitors. And after 8 years of a single day event, we're also planning to increase this to 2 days, which again gave us more time to tackle the seminars, the live debates, and the awards that we felt the industry should be covering. Though we did think it was paramount that we should explore different opportunities that still allow the UK landscaping sector to come together in 2020. And we believe the solution is to embrace technology. We're all now used to using Zoom and Team for business meetings, business catch-ups, and our own personal life. But FutureScape Virtual takes this to the next level. The idea and the concept is to take all the FutureScape delivers in terms of its seminar program, its live debates, and its awards, and deliver it straight to the sector in their own environment that they can watch and listen to as and when they need. It's going to be an interesting process for us, and I'm sure we're going to learn a lot along the way. But now I'm going to introduce our first panel. So it's now on to the first debate for the landscape industry post-COVID-19. The panel cover most aspects of the landscaping sector. They have a wealth of experience and have all been very successful in their own rights. I will ask them shortly to introduce themselves and give a quick synopsis on how they think the sector will bounce back. Maybe it's already bouncing back, and maybe just as importantly, how they see the changes going forward. I will then ask some additional questions, but for the benefit of the wider audience, this has been pre-recorded, this session, but the panelists are live after the debate and will take questions. So please feel free to post questions as we go along. Thank you. So Richard, can I ask you, well, first of all, welcome. Can I ask you to start in a quick introduction of what you think is going on in the industry and where we're going to go?
Good morning, Jim. Good morning to Phil, John, Helena, Tom and Helen. What a great panel you've got lined up. Where do we think we're going? Well, I think it's been a very strange year, that's for sure. For us personally, we bounced back pretty strong from August the 1st. We were back hitting budgets, and then record September, looking like for record October. We found that the smaller to medium landscapers were back in business very quickly, probably for about sort of July onwards, whereas the larger contracts took a lot of time getting going. But we're seeing these come through now. I think the industry on a whole could be in for some halcyon days going forward. I think it's fair to say the general public has seen the benefits of using gardens and green open space and parks throughout lockdown and post-lockdown. And we're seeing that the housing market is very strong with people wanting to relocate. And I suspect that will transcend into nice projects for designers and landscapers to implement new gardens and rehashing of gardens. And also throughout COVID, we're seeing the government pledging promises of spend in construction, infrastructure, green infrastructure and forestry, tree planting. So as long as the government sticks to their word, I think it bodes well for our market.
Okay, Phil, shall I come to you next? Welcome.
Thank you, Jim, and good morning, everyone. I guess it's been a bit of a strange year in that everyone's asking when the recovery might take place. And we found actually the recovery began almost immediately, maybe a week after the official lockdown in March. We probably shut down for just less than a week and then realized actually we could perform most of our operations with within a safe environment. And of course our clients did the same thing really in terms of commercial construction. So we geared up again and cracked on, if you like, within the safe environment, of course. But construction's continued, and that's been good because that's been obviously at the insistence of the government to carry on, and that seems to be the sort of word going forward that will continue. Our volumes instructed projects have steadily increased. So whilst we continued work at a slightly lower level, the number of projects that were instructed, i.e. awarded to us, say in April and May, reduced to a certain extent, maybe by 50% actually. But the activity in terms of inquiries from clients rocketed through the roof. And I think I remember saying back in March, April, that we ended up having to take on a positive new people in our sales teams to cope with the inquiries. So what we found then was that, having dealt with those inquiries, there was a lull in awards decision making, because the people who were at the top end of the decision making were actually furloughed and therefore couldn't make those decisions until they returned, mostly in July and August. So we've since seen a huge increase in activity in terms of negotiation on contracts, and some really good contracts. Good in terms of, from the commercial world, in terms of you know, the profile of the contracts, the quality of the design, the quality that the client is looking to deliver, or for us to deliver, and also a maintaining of the price levels that we hopefully all would expect in the industry to continue. And I'll come back to that later in terms of the future. But clients have begun to catch up, which is good, because there was a slight lull at the start, and they're now inevitably placing importance on getting their projects finished, with the never-ending artificial deadline of Christmas, of course, is looming. So people want to get finished by the end of the year, and they want to get projects instructed for the new year to crack on in the spring. Again, the level of inquiries is still incredibly strong, and I think, summing up from my point of view, we've got we're now at high levels of turnover than we were pre-COVID, and we're negotiating on more contracts, and more of the contracts we'd like to negotiate on, than we were before as well. So from my point of view, it's a very positive outlook, until you ask me later, I guess, about how the next year linked with the economy looks.
Okay. So Helen, shall we come to you now?
Morning, everybody. Yeah, so I think I do sort of agree with both what Phil and Richard are saying. Obviously, we know that it was quite a hit for lockdown, and so necessarily, you know, that created a bit of a bulge afterwards. I've definitely seen some clients who have put projects on hold. A lot of the projects that we do are related to house builds, and they are waiting on those. If they're not already doing them, there's a few clients who are delayed starting their housework, and then that has a knock-on effect on the landscape. Our inquiries are still pretty buoyant. I think there is a real difference. The economy obviously is taking a massive hit, and there's clearly quite a lot of people in difficulty, and there's a definite have and have nots within our economy, which I think is diverging. You know, that's getting worse. I guess the issue for a lot of the landscape industry is that maybe a lot of people work in the landscape industry who are in that position, but they're maybe not the clients. You know, I tend to work with, you know, fairly high-end projects, and actually they are mostly unaffected. I think COVID is going to be a very bumpy winter, and I think that will have a big effect next year. I think a lot of house building projects that I have seen go ahead at the moment, if the COVID cases continue to rise, I think people will feel very differently. Certainly if there are extensions, I think people will feel very differently about having people in and around their homes, and I think that may cause some projects to, you know, to have the brakes put on or to be delayed. Again, that may cause another bulge, so that things stop and then they restart next year, you know, when the weather gets better and people can continue. I've definitely seen, you know, like everybody has, we've seen a huge rise in the interest of people. Well, people are working from home, you know, like now, if you want to get, you know, an office from home to go in your garden, there's some really long lead times. You know, that's kind of quite a an issue. Actually, there's a real issue of sort of supply and demand, and I think that will continue. A lot of companies have found that working from home works for them, and they're not seeing problems with productivity. And so I think that they will continue that for a while. But next year, if there is a vaccine and things change in relation to COVID, I think a lot of companies will change that attitude. You know, they will sort of say, no, actually, you can come back into the office. And then I think I think that for me, the position is very unclear, because the positions of COVID is still very unclear. And as an industry, are we well equipped to respond to them? Yes, I think we are. And I think there is definitely still demands out there, but I think it will change. I think we're for a bumpy ride still.
Come to you, Tom.
We've seen terrific growth actually since the lockdown period. I think partly it's a bubble of backlogged work, but partly because there's a lot of government incentive with things like the Green Recovery Fund, or the Green Recovery Challenge Fund, I should call it, and the fact that local authorities are recognising the importance of their rural spaces as much as their urban ones and more traditional parks. So I think it's a little bit of both, but yeah, we're feeling good.
Okay. And a slightly different position with the RHS then. What's your take on what's happening in the market?
Well, good morning first, sorry everyone.
Morning.
Thank you for inviting me today. We have seen a huge surge in our advisory actually through the RHS service that's online. So through the actual lockdown itself, we've seen 200% every single week, and that's actually continued. We've also seen a much younger audience coming through than our normal RHS audience, and a lot of people really talking to us about how they do their gardens, health and well-being, what they should be planting. And actually our websites as well have taken huge numbers of visitors and traffic through this period, and it's been really great to see that this has actually carried on coming out of lockdown. We would agree that actually even house plants as well, so just indoor and what people could do with their indoor space has been incredibly important on their balconies, but also their gardens. And then people we've spoken to around the industry have been doing very well during this time. But I would agree with what everyone is saying. It's quite difficult to really ascertain what's going to happen in the future, because as we know, certainly from the last recession, which we may come into economy-wise, whether or not people will keep spending next year and beyond. But from what we can see, the industry has bounced back through this time, and everyone is really busy. So I think it's been really positive for the industry. Not quite how we would like to have seen it, but I think people have really looked at their gardens and how they use their gardens, certainly for health and well-being, and how they can really use their outdoor space to best effect.
Okay. And finally, John, on this end, before we get into some more questions, from a position of looking into the industry now rather than maybe being so deep into it, what's your feelings?
Well, I think whilst we're talking about the bounce back from lockdown as opposed to COVID, because COVID's here. The genie's out the bottle and it's not going back in anytime soon. So it's really how has the industry reacted to lockdown? And I think it's given the industry a very positive opportunity. Where in business do you get a period where you can reflect? And this is what the industry should, and I believe generally has been doing. It's been re-evaluating its processes, it's questioning certain procedures, and it's encompassing change. You know, virtual communication. I worked on a project which opened on the 16th of March, 1999, and we were doing virtual communication. And yet it takes a pandemic for the industry to embrace it. I mean, that's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So this is a period of reflection. It's a period of change, massive change in the industry across all sectors. And it's a time for reflection. And companies that have managed their way through the lockdown process will come out stronger. And if you were weak before lockdown, you're going to be weak after it. And so there will be a dynamic shift in the marketplace going forward in all sectors of the landscape. Fantastic opportunities exist there. You know, you can reshape your business, and businesses have been reshaped. And those that have managed it progressively and well have come out very much stronger for it, and that will be determined in the marketplace going forward. So bounce back from lockdown, I see as very positive. I travel around the country this summer judging some of the Bali Awards, and it's the length and breadth of the country. It's the same scenario. If you've got a can-do attitude, you've gone forward. And if you're still navel gazing, you're probably heading for the rocks, if you're not there already. So this is a fantastic opportunity, and it's really how we manage it as an industry going forward.
So, John, just on that, then, it feels that I'm not sure if contradiction is the right word. So, with the commercial sector, especially around the offices and and that side of it, and more people working from home, where does that balance come then in terms of? Isn't there going to be lots of office space that's left empty, so they're not going to be investing in the green space?
The situation is, Jim, is that these projects have been in the planning for a long period of time. These projects that are on the ground now have probably been a minimum of 5 years in the planning, and the financial models that they were worked on stacked up then. The question is, going forward, once these projects are completed, are they redundant? And if they are, what use can they be put to? So I think this is one of the opportunities for the industry going forward. There will be a redesign of some of these spaces. There has to be. You cannot keep putting out multi-story office blocks if there's no demand for it. Simple as that. So will they be converted into apartments? Well, will people want to be living on the 18th floor with no garden going forward, particularly after lockdown? So I think there's a whole conundrum coming forward, and it's too early yet. These projects that are on the move, the big commercial projects, be they residential, be they office, they will be completed, and then they will be reworked. So there's future work there for landscape architects, garden designers, etc. going forward, and for the industry as a whole. There will be a revamp. They won't be demolished, they're too valuable, but their uses will have to change. And I can quite honestly see us going back to the likes of business parks possibly, where you've got smaller hubs of offices rather than multi-story complexes. So I think society is going through a massive change, and businesses certainly will go through a massive change. It hasn't started yet. That process of realigning themselves within the marketplace, these office developers, hasn't started yet. They've got to complete one phase first, and then they will reevaluate where they are, see what the society wants, and then they will move forward again. So there may well be a lull whilst there's a redesign and thinking of the overall process, but massive opportunities.
A question, start with maybe Phil then. So talking about the government saying that they're going to go ahead with these projects and et cetera, when do you think as a community we're going to have to start paying this money back? And how do you think the government are going to raise money? Do you think we're going to be paying more taxes, which could have an effect on people in the domestic scene, or do you think they are going to start cancelling some of the contracts that they're saying that they're going to go ahead with and not invest the money?
Thanks, Jim. I think, well, second-guessing government action at the moment is probably a dangerous and futile point of view. But I think I see, pretty much as John has said, actually, quite a wave of contracts which are already in place, and those that are far too far down the line to stop, as it were. I think we've got probably, who knows how long, but I think we've got probably, I think, a year to 18 months on existing commercial contracts before we see a real change before we see a real downturn in volumes of work. But I think we, as a number of people have said, we're responsible for not just delivering work, but for influencing, the industry, i.e. construction industry, domestic market, whatever we're involved in, influencing things through as that change happens. And, I am a firm believer also that the change that is to come post-lockdown hasn't really come yet. We're all on a wave of getting things finished that people created a backlog for, and we're helping our clients, as it were, either to remodel domestic properties because they've spent a lot more time in those properties and gardens, or to help clients in the commercial world deliver their projects on time and get paid. I think how all this money is paid back, I'm not sure anyone has a definite answer to that. I fear actually that that after a year, 18 months, not just the landscape industry, but a number of industries will suffer badly from the effect of all this money that's been lent out by the government to individuals and to companies. So I think short term, a great prospect. I've got a bright view of that. Long term, after 2 years, I don't necessarily have such a view.
Just picking up one of the things you said, Helen, in terms of whether it's going to be the workmen going into people's environments, or it's the cautious and people spending money, or how it's going to affect the business. You indicated more that people might be more worried about actually people coming into their house than actually people spending the money to have the gardens done.
I think it's both those things. I think if the second, I think people are frightened by COVID. People are very worried by it, and it will impact the decisions that they make, particularly when it comes to themselves and their loved ones, and they will take a more cautious approach. I think some people won't. Some people don't believe it's out. There's all of that hoo-ha, but I think you will get a lot of people will stay, particularly over the winter. I'm not so sure about people coming into my home, but I also think as well there are economic issues. Clearly every time there is a downturn in the economy, our industry does take a hit. This time I do think that is counterbalanced by the fact that people have understood the value of outside space, and they've seen how important that is, and there is this switch from centralized hubs and offices back to people, for some people working from home, and for some people that has been very successful. For a lot of people, the working from home has created a lot of mental health issues. It's created a lot of kind of stress and complexity. It's not a straightforward thing at all, and there are definitely those that it works for and those that it doesn't. And what I think we're seeing is these two completely different sort of threads within our society: the haves not, those that can work from home, those that can't work from home. There's those that really fear the virus, there are those that don't. I think it's a really complicated and complex situation, and I think it will change with the second wave, which is which is hitting us now.
Yeah, okay. So Tom, in terms of your businesses, you run different groups. Have you seen certain parts of the business doing better, and other parts not doing as well?
Yeah, Jim, we have. I think particular strength is everything to do with public access and environmental works, more biodiversity focused grounds maintenance, and particularly in the public sector. The local authorities realising the importance of that, both in capital works now, building and improving car parks into public spaces that weren't so popular in the past, but also the way that they're being managed for access internally and for nature. Let's not forget that we've still got huge tree planting targets. That leads me onto the tree planting. That is unchanged. We've still got millions of trees to plant. And we as a company on our books have many hundreds of thousands of those trees on our books to meet government targets. So that remains like a growth industry. And I don't know whether anybody else here is involved in tree surgery, but the ARB world, I don't know what is going on, but the growth in ARB at the moment is extraordinary. And the supply and demand for it can't be met. There's not enough people in the industry to meet what's needed. I think particularly for us, where we have climbing ecologists and climbing veteran tree experts and more biodiversity, environmentally focused tree and ARB works, I don't know why it's growing like it is, but it is. So right across the board within, I guess, Maidencroft and our contracting services and consultancy, it's great. The sustainable materials side of things is great too. We've gone into recycled plastic products, and I'm sure Richard will agree that the focus towards any form of sustainable material purchasing and the growth within that sector and being smart in pivoting towards it, we're going to carry on to see growth in those areas too. But quite rightly, as Phil said, we're enjoying it right now. I don't think we ever will pay back all that money that's being borrowed. What happens when interest rates have to go back up in 2 to 3 years from now? Who knows? I think we can only make hay and do what we can do responsibly in our industry and the needs that are needed right now. From a 5-year plan perspective, agreed. I think particularly in traditional landscaping, potentially the domestic market, and not that any of us are working that much within the lower end domestic market, that the industry will feel it. I'm sure of that. So,
Richard, picking up on Tom's point, and in terms of your array of products, are you seeing any of the surges in the ARB sector or linked to the ARB sector?
We're seeing our customers who are in that sector are all reporting they're very, very busy and lots of work planned, and a big order book for ARB works. Our customers who are heavily into forestry planting, they've been pre-ordering tree shelters since end of July. And we've got a very busy lined up to delivering spirals and tree shelters across the country. So I think some of that is, like John said earlier, a bit of pent-up demand from works that didn't get completed in April. But I think also it's a net effect. Biomass market, the timber prices are good, and they can afford to replant these forests that are taken down for biomass and timber and restock them with trees and shelters. Just going to go back to Tom's point about people's requirements for recycled products and interrogating where your products are made, what is made from recycle. We've seen people asking more about our products made from recycled plastics. We're just about to launch a scheme with Tubex for recycling tree shelters, where they bought a business that does recycling, so they can now offer a package to recover tree shelters and take them back to their new business to regranulate the old tree shelters into polymer to use again.
Okay. John, I just wonder, with this, like, couple of years making hay, and then maybe two, 3 years down the line, tighten up our belts, sort of thing. If you were running a big landscaping business now, how would you be planning your next 5 years? How would you be structuring the business and what you would be doing?
Quite easy, Jim, really. The situation is I would now be evaluating every inquiry that came through the door. Firstly, to see what are the chances of that inquiry ever being built, because tendering is just a waste of resource. And so I would be analysing every inquiry that came in to ascertain as far as practical whether it's going to be built. If it's not going to be built, or I feel there's not a chance to be built, it would be binned. Because people will still want their cost plans checked. They will still be doing this whole process and using contractors in the process. So I would also be recruiting. I'll be interviewing and recruiting, because I would be keeping a gap in my order book. I would not be going out panic buying cheap work at this juncture. I would be keeping a gap in the order book, 20%, 25%, because come the new year, come Easter, come early next summer, there unfortunately are going to be some casualties in the industry. And there will be the opportunities then to pick up contracts on the rebound. It's happened in every recession over the last 3 that I was in business anyway. And that strategy stood in good stead. There'll be skills in this industry that will be let go from various companies, and it will be keeping track on those individuals and then attracting them into the business. Because this is nothing new. We've been through these cycles before. Pandemic is new. but the cycles are not new. And it's having confidence in the market going forward. Yes, you might have to tighten your belts, but comes back to my previous point of having a good lockdown. A good lockdown, you're actually preparing for the next 3 to 5 years. As a business, you're taking out any deadwood, you're taking out any redundant procedures, you're getting you're changing gear, ready for the off. And if you haven't taken time to actually use this paid time to start to shape your business, you've missed an opportunity. So I see this as being nothing different than, you know, the last recession, the one before that, the collapse completely of the property market in the 90s. I mean, you know, that was Armageddon. We were never going to recover from that. You know, look at the change in retail and how retail is going to change over the next few years and how it changed. I mean, I remember handing over 1, if not 2 superstores every month for about 5 years. 220 Tesco superstores, you know, 247 Sainsbury's. It went on and on and on, and it was never going to end. But it did. The bottom fell out of the market. The bees come around the honey pot, and you had to look for your food elsewhere. And that's how the market evolves. And it doesn't matter which sector you're in. You know, you'll have some peaks and troughs. All this infrastructure works that the government has planned will bring work to a particular sector of the landscape industry. It won't cover all companies. All companies aren't geared up for it. You know, some companies are better at shelter belt planting than others, and that's the simple fact of it. But the market will remain there. There will still be a buoyant landscape market in 3 to 5 years' time, and that's it. It's happened before. It will happen again. Yeah.
John, so that 25% having that free, then, is that because you feel that's where you could be making more profit on the business end by picking up those jobs that fall down?
Yes, definitely. Any job that's on the rebound, your margins are up, and client will come to you to finish a scheme, and undoubtedly there'll be bonds there to help assist finance the rebound, but your prices should be higher. They need to be higher. Your productivity from COVID is going to be lower. So that's the statement of fact. It takes you longer to do work on site. It takes you longer to get materials to site, to get clearance on site. You can only have, you know, a couple of people in a hoist going up to a rooftop. It takes you far longer to do it. So your productivity and therefore your profitability will be under pressure going forward. There's no two ways about it. So it's sensible not to fill up with this pressurized work and wait for the rebound, and it will come.
Okay. I'm going to slight change of attack or direction now. Then, Helena, I guess the big responsibility on you in terms of the RHS shows being a real big flagship for the whole industry. What's the initial feeling for the RHS about Chelsea next year? Then, do you think you're going to be able to get hundreds of thousands of people in that main avenue in May?
Well, it's quite interesting. So we've been looking at Chelsea, in fact, all the shows for next year for quite a while. And actually, we've been talking to a lot of people, certainly safety advisory groups, councils, in terms of how we can deliver Chelsea safely for everybody that would like to come. Interestingly, we also had a very large number of our ticket purchases that deferred from 2020 to 2021. So no, for Chelsea as a standalone, we don't feel we should be having the same number of people in ground. So we actually have, we're looking at a few different elements at the moment to ensure that Chelsea could go ahead, subject to government measures, because we don't know, for next year, which sort of looks like an extra day, less people in ground, actually spreading our show gardens around so that we can in fact deliver for the industry and also for our visitors. We have seen a lot of our gardens have deferred from 2020 to 2021, and we have had interest come through as well for new gardens for 21. And in terms of also our nursery exhibitors within the Great Pavilion, again, we're seeing a lot of those wish to return. I think it's because having a year off and having a large number of people that are so interested in it, and having us giving the ability to help and support the industry for all stakeholders and drive it moving forward, it's been really important for us to ensure if we can go ahead, we've got everything in place to go ahead. We do expect to see less people come through, probably one day longer, and certainly an awful lot of measures in place to make sure that we can keep everybody safe that comes to the shows.
And how would that pavilion work? Is that perceived as an indoor area, or how's that going to be?
So it's not perceived as an indoor area because it's so big and it's so high. We also have a lot of events around the entire Great Pavilion itself, so it's seen predominantly as an outdoor. What we will also though have is wider aisles, enabling people to move around. We'll be limiting numbers that go through, but because we're going to have a lot less people actually in ground that we would normally have, and we'll have additional stewards actually on all of the doors and also in front of all the show gardens, so we're not going to have people merging or converging all together on the same garden. So we've got an awful lot of measures in place. It could be we end up with masks when you come in sight. A lot of our fixed catering will be removed, so actually it will be grab and go, but we also have table service in other areas. So we've got additional parking probably down at Battersea Park, so people don't have to use public transport. So currently we're working through all these elements just to ensure that we can deliver Chelsea.
And are you feeling quite positive? I know what it's like trying to manage and organise events, and I feel like we've been hung out to dry in terms of what we can do and what we can't do, and talk about government changing their rules and regulations at a drop of a hat. In the events business, they're dropping it even quicker than that. It's amazing, the change. So what is your gut that you feel there will be some type of Chelsea next year?
Oh, it's really difficult to say. I'd like to say that we're confident we can go ahead under the restrictions that are currently in place. We are predominantly outdoors, and we're going to have a lot less people that will come through in ground at that time. So we've had crowd modelers come through, so we know how many people we can get in our areas. We can only work to that government advice and ensure we have everything in place to go ahead. We really, really want to go ahead, not just Chelsea, but the rest of the shows as well. And actually Malvern and Spring Festival goes 2 weeks before Chelsea. And we're just working really, really hard to ensure that we can deliver those shows. I'd love a crystal ball, and I really hope that once we're through for next year, that we will actually see that we can go ahead. We know that a lot of people are very positive about buying tickets, and actually people really want to be there, and they really want us to be able to go ahead. So we will do all we can to ensure that we can deliver the shows.
And so one last question, and we'll open up again a bit more. So in terms of, do you think the sponsorship money is still there, and people will still be prepared to pay to support the Chelsea Gardens?
So we have seen people defer with their sponsorship in place, and we've seen some new ones come through. I'd actually agree with the rest of the panel that we probably won't see a downturn until about 2022. And I think we'll have to work harder in terms of looking for people and how we promote them. But we have a great product, we have a great brand, and certainly we can promote people and really give them access to our visitors and also all the stakeholders that we work with. So I'd be quite confident that we can give them a really good return on their sponsorship investment coming through to us, based on the fact that we're seeing such a large number of people surge through and be interested in gardening moving forward.
I guess having a vaccine may help as well in terms of people having more confidence. So Helen, just on you in terms of resources, in terms of landscapers, are you landscapers having enough time on their hand, having enough time to actually fit in your jobs, or are you having to delay and wait for the gardens to start?
Good contractors are there's not, the good ones are always busy, and they're really busy now, but that is, we've seen that before, where and people will I'll always wait for a decent contractor, because you wait for a good contractor and nearly, even if they start later, they finish the job earlier. So good people are always good people, and they're always in high demand. Definitely we see that now. A lot of them are booking jobs way into next year. That's fine.
And I guess Phil and Tom has been employers of landscape people. How are you finding recruiting staff, and how are you finding, let's give it to Tom to start with, how are you finding getting those additional staff you want?
It's our biggest barrier to growth. We are totally people focused. The only time we ever market ourselves as a business is to market ourselves to the people that we want to employ. We're relaunching our website shortly that's massively careers focused, and we've found just under 20 new full-time employees since we came out of lockdown, and we're still looking for more. So for us, whilst I agree with John about picking your contracts, we've always been able to pick our contracts. That's not new for us. The focus is on finding the right people. You invest in your people and everything else follows. So yeah, it's still a big deal for us.
And Phil, so slight spin on that then. So what are the key roles that are hard to find? And also just a little bit more depth, I guess, you know, in February we had a conversation, you were rebranding your business, you were looking at acquisitions and, you know, merging some of the businesses around and all that. Was it all good timing?
I think we had that conversation in February, as you said. If you'd said, was it good timing the end of March? I'd have said, who knows? But actually, back to a point that John made, I mean, we were actually, you know, looking to rebrand, having done a heck of a lot of work in the business the pre-18 months, to rebrand in April. We felt there may be an audience for that. And actually, I think I said at the time, it wouldn't be right, morally right, to ask people to focus on the commercial aspects of our business and our branding when there were a lot of other things going on in the country which were far more important. But it turns out, from my point of view, and the feedback which is most important from our customers, it turns out it was a great time to do it, because when we eventually did it in July, we found that there was a very good audience for it. People were very focused on what was changing, looking for changes in the industry, as we're all doing with this discussion. And it's gone down extremely well, both with existing customers, but also potential customers who've responded and actually approached us to see what was going on. But link that, and I think more importantly, almost link that with how the potential, you know, the people you may want to attract into your business as employees, they've seen a change. People have said to me right across the industry, they've seen a change in what we've been doing in the last couple of years, and the brand has just reinforced that. There's an excitement with people who talk to me around wanting to come to join the business because they've seen what's happening. Now, on a general point, I think it's still very difficult to recruit really good people. I've slightly changed my view that the reason for that is not necessarily these days that they aren't around, but because uncertainty in the industry and the economy means that they're more likely to stick with what they've got because they perceive that to be more secure than making a change in uncertain times. It's not necessarily a barrier, but it's a difficulty which you need to overcome by the offer you make them. And that's all about making sure the offer's two-way, not just looking for something you want as a business, but offering people conditions that they want to work in and with.
And the positions that are hardest to recruit for?
Positions hardest to recruit for, I think really good contract managers are not necessarily hard to come by, but hard to, as I said earlier, hard to prize out of other businesses unless you can give a substantial and good reason to come and join us. But we've managed to do that over the last couple of months, even given the uncertainty. You mentioned about did we still see a positivity in working with partners or making acquisitions? Absolutely, we do, because we see that there are a number of people, and this is not just a perception, this is reality in terms of who we're talking to. We see a number of people who perhaps want to keep going as a business, maybe still have a really good order book, but don't necessarily see themselves as having the cash to deliver that work in the medium to long term. So there is a market for that. We're not particularly being aggressive on that. We most of our growth will still come from organic growth. I believe that's the best way to do it, by building relationships with existing and potential clients, delivering a good job and getting repeat business.
So, John, a quick question for you then. So, looking on the inside, are there enough big commercial contractors that can carry out that top end work to make that sector competitive?
No. In the short, there's, I mean, it's a failing. If you look at how the industry has evolved over the last 3 years, 3 to 5 years, you've got a lot of capacity in the high-end commercial market that's come out of the industry. So there is actually a void there at the high end. Tier 2 contractors aren't willing or haven't got the ability financially or otherwise to actually step up to Tier 1 status. And so there is this void. So Tier 1 contractors in the commercial sector and the high-end private sector are having a field day. They're absolutely flat out. And they're looking over their shoulders and there's no one biting at their heels. That's the truth of it. Yeah. So there is, you know, I wouldn't be worried if I was operating now in the high-end commercial market or high-end domestic market, because there's a lot of capacity there, and prices will nudge up. Margins will be down this year for the majority of companies, I dare say, because of lockdown, and the difficulties of operating on site, as we mentioned earlier. But in terms of volumes of work out there, you know, it's fill your boots. To be honest, it's, you know, there's just so much out there that it's you know, make hay while the sun shines, as Tom said.
The other thing, there's all this talk about retraining and all these other sectors that are unfortunately shedding lots of staff and retraining development. And I guess, Richard, maybe this is for you with your Barley hat on, and congratulations for becoming chair on that. But is there something the industry should be doing to look at the other sectors to see how that they can bring the people into our industry?
I think it's a great time to recruit. A great time for all Barley members and associated industries memberships to recruit. There's undoubtedly going to be a lot of people who are leaving jobs or being made redundant that could be have transferable skills that could come into our industry and then train up into to be great candidates. And I think Barley is, you know, promoting with Go Landscape to not only look at school leavers but also ex-military. And, you know, the website's getting more and more traffic all the time of people who are actually interested in trade. So I do feel it is a good time to recruit and, you know, get some quality candidates on your books.
What could the industry do as a whole, rather than, I don't know, different fragments done different ways? You know, I think when they start talking about the apprentice scheme, there's about 6 or 7 different government incentivized apprentice schemes. Then there were some of the big companies themselves launching apprentice schemes. Isn't this the opportunity in a time now to really look at how the industry as a whole recruit, and maybe sort of, I don't know, whether it becomes centralised or maybe having one set way of doing it rather than all these sporadic ways?
I think, of course, young people are the key. They always were, and there are even more incentives. I think that the current system works well, but it could always be better. We work with 3 different colleges because we're in 3 different locations, and each college do their apprenticeship programs in a slightly different way. And yes, you're right, it could be a more unified approach, and I don't think the colleges are as content with their core structures as they could be. But we work with what we're given, and we give it everything we've got. And we have a responsibility as large employers to bring young people into the industry, and we'll continue to do so. We've committed to no fewer than 5% of our workforce in some form of Earn to Learn scheme, and we'll continue to do that. But yeah, I don't know whether now's the time, but it would be great if it was, to review the way that apprenticeships are done, both in landscaping and in art.
John, have you got anything to add on that in terms of the industry as a whole, training and developing people?
Yes, I mean, we're pretty appalling at it, quite frankly, you know, and have been for a number of years. Colleges have consistently let the industry down, and that's probably a lot due to lack of funding. Some of the great names in landscape training in terms of colleges, Maris Wood, etc., have lost their way in terms of the landscape training and haven't been replaced. So there has been for many years this complete void, and you know, a centralised system would be very much appreciated if it would give the industry what it wanted. And this is the thing, is so varied, as Tom said, from college to college, scheme to scheme. There's no continuity and no single standard across the industry, and that's where it's lacking.
I think there's any silver. I don't think there's any silver bullet answer to this, Jim. And I totally agree with what John and Tom are saying. That even in our business here, the apprentice we have, a couple of different schemes, and there's no crossover. I think having one training provider or one scheme would be great, but I just don't see it happening. I think it's down to, like Phil said earlier, where you've got to offer the incoming candidates great benefits to work for you, great training, and work with what you've got and upskill them all the time. And I think it's down to individual companies to do that for themselves with support of the various memberships that are out there. But ultimately, it's down to individual companies to attract them and train them.
I feel like on that, there's a sort of two-tier, isn't there? One is to get the people into the industry, whether they're apprenticeships, they're new, or they're people from outside that are retraining. And then the second thing is for the companies then to say, this is why you should work for us. So I think there's, is there a corporate way of selling this industry, or the different elements of the industry as one, and then each of the individual companies then can find why you should come work for us because we offer this. And I see a lot of the individual companies offering great training, and there are some fantastic ways of doing it. You talk to staff that work within some of these companies and they really benefit from the development, but there isn't that one saying, as an industry, this is where you should work, especially now in terms of, if you think of all those people that are sitting there in aviation, in hospitality, in events business, in all those different industries that are really, really worried about where their job is. If as an industry we sold ourselves better, wouldn't we be able to recruit more people into it? Helen?
I guess. What about your jobs page? Has that been busy?
So in terms of, no, not overly, but I'm not sure if that's maybe an issue with us in terms of the focus and the effort that we've done in doing it. I think we tend to generate inquiries, but not necessarily inquiries that people like you are looking for in terms of the high level, in terms of skills. And I think that's an issue in terms of where we are. So I think there are, it did go quiet, but it has started to do it. I think it's very, very difficult. I think even the better companies are finding it very, very difficult to recruit. And so I think they're using not necessarily the traditional stick your job on a job board and hopefully get a response. I think that people will be more specific on how they look. So yeah, no, I don't think we've seen a massive surge on that.
Well, I take your point. I think we could definitely come up with a advertising scheme that could be shared across members to advertise locally on their socials to try and drive people to them on a local basis, and with highlights of how great our trade is.
Helen, do you want to come in?
One of the things, we have to change the language. We've all been saying it now. Well, I haven't, but we talk about young people coming into the industry. You miss half of the people out there that move jobs. There's loads of evidence that about half of the population, the working population, move jobs and change careers within their lifetime, and that will only increase. There's loads of evidence, loads of studies on about changing work patterns, and we're seeing this in COVID. You are seeing huge numbers of people who are going to diversify their skills because they have to survive. And if we continue to talk about young people, and young people are the people that we want to attract into the industry, we are missing out on lots of hugely talented, incredibly valuable people that are just automatically kind of go, okay, that's not for me. It's only valuable if I start it when I'm 16 or 17 or 18. And that isn't the case. There's lots of fantastic people out there, and we absolutely massively need to change the language that we use around recruitment and trying to attract people into the industry.
I think you're right. And in garden design, I guess that's a good reflection of what's happening there, because a lot of the people going through the training are second, third time job career changes. But in the landscaping sector itself, I don't see anything appealing to that type of audience or that type of job thing. I think a lot in terms of the students and a lot in terms of the apprentice, but nothing at all in that other sector.
Well, I think in house build, you see it in house builders. Oh, you know, what's a house builder? Oh, by the way, I'm a landscape contractor. I mean, you know, we all know those.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is we need to ensure that they then get the right skills and that they upskill so that they can actually do the job well. And I use the term upskill very deliberately. You know, there's lots of people across our industry who move. There's a stereotypical view of, you know, garden designers, you know, being, you know, coming into the industry, and everybody needs to train, and they need to take their training seriously. And because that's incredibly important for our industry, there is a, you know, garden design, you do sort of see it, you know, people who do these short courses and they come out of it, they haven't learned their trade, they haven't learned the skill set. And obviously when women do it, they're ladies that lunch. When men do it, they're like really astute and they're making really good decisions, because they bring all these like absolutely disgraceful levels of misogyny within our industry that we need to tackle. And, you know, we see that all the time. We need to attract good people, and there are lots of people at the moment who are going to be saying, okay, shall I learn another skill? You know, is there other things that we could do? And we should take advantage of that. But the focus must be on good people and making sure that they get the right skills and that they don't just walk into our industry and then we end up with a lot of problems.
Where do you see the responsibility of doing that lies with? Who should be taking the lead on that?
Oh gosh, lots of people. As a recruiter, you should be making sure that you are, you know, are you looking for people who have the right skills? When you're advertising posts, when you, you know, our industry leaders should be talking to the colleges. As, you know, John was sort of saying, I do think a lot of the colleges are not offering the training, and the reasons for that are complicated. They're underfunding. I think that we should be talking to the people who offer these short courses and say, really, you know, really, should you be doing that? And if you do it, then, you know, should you be capturing them to make sure that you are saying it is clear that you are offering those courses at an amateur level only and not a professional level? I think there's lots of things, you know, there's lots of things that we should do. I think the RHS has a role to play. There's the difference between amateur areas of our industry and the professional level. I think we should be shouting from the rooftops the excellent work that people do, from arboriculturists, you know, site surveyors, right the way up to contractors, specialists, designers, all of those things we should be shouting about, but we should always be underlying the differences.
Helen, have you got anything where you see the RHS role in that?
So we deliver education and a lot of learning as well, and we see a lot of career changes that have come through to work for the RHS, which has been fantastic. So there is momentum at the moment within inside the RHS to really promote careers, changing careers, and also bringing young people through. And we're looking at making sure we highlight this through all the shows next year, but also through all of our gardens as well. But we think it's really, really important. And what's really important to make sure the salary scale is really up there and people appreciate the skill set that everybody has, from designers and contractors to everybody else that's coming through to the industry.
Excellent. We're unfortunately running out of time now, so I'm just going to ask everyone just to sort of talk about how they see their business over the next couple of years, and maybe a couple of the key things that they think could trigger the growth for their business. And I guess John and Helen are slightly different in terms of how you perceive what should happen as the industry, or from the RHS point of view. So Richard, start from you.
Well, we're just starting our financial year again. This year we've just budgeted to do the same as last year, as like a holding year, a year of consolidation. During COVID, we've done exactly as John said. We've revalued our business. We've put lots of tech and systems in, automation, and more machinery to make the business quicker, and it's having great results, which we'll see transcend. I think training, we're doing a massive amount of training, upskilling our staff currently across all parts of the business to get them ready to perform better, and just working hard for our clients, delivering great customer service, make sure we do what we were saying we're going to do, make sure we've got the right prices, the right products at the right time, the right place, and just keep doing what we've done for the last 26 years. You know, we're ready to go again for 2022, but we're looking forward to a year of consolidation, try and manage any poor debt that we're going to get, and just manage our credit limits and customer limits, work with them and support our great customers, but just really just take stock, you know, and get ready to move on when the market moves on.
Phil?
Well, from our point of view, it's fairly simple because we're already on a path that suggested we were going to grow the business. But for me, it's keeping focus on, as we said before, making sure we attract the right people into our business. We've still got 1 or 2 positions to fill over the next 6 months, making sure that they're the right people and skilled properly, making sure that we continue to build our relationships and strengthen those relationships with people who we work well with together, and with contracts that pay, because that means everyone wins. You know, we see fairly, you know, we're budgeting fairly significant growth next year, but that was already in the pipeline anyway. We know there's enough contracts we're talking about at the moment, high end, both high end commercial and actually high end domestic, where they will come to fruition, I'm certain. And so I don't see we have to adapt too much. We have spent that time of reflection. I think I said back in March, April time, that we would spend this time reflecting. We got so busy that actually it's a good job we did it. We did it then because we've laid the foundations with that reflection for the next couple of years. The phrase "make hay while the sun shines" has been used a lot this morning, and I firmly believe that, because that's not short-termism. That's making sure you build your business properly on a contract base where you have the profitable work, and therefore you set yourself up to ride any storm in the future. One plea I would make to the industry is we're staying out of any practice that will take prices down. And again, it's been mentioned a couple of times this morning. I'm not interested in our business in a race to the bottom. We want good, profitable work, because that's the way we deliver good work for our clients and deliver good landscape schemes. So I think the danger is people will start to buy work. We've seen some of it happening in the last couple of months, particularly. I hope that those who have a conscience in the industry will make sure that we step back from that. People want to buy work, that's up to them, but we hope that won't happen very much, and certainly we won't get involved in it. So I think, in summary, we're in a good place. I think the industry's in a good place. We've got tons of work. So, you know, there's times in the past where the industry haven't had work for the next 6 months, particularly going into the winter. So we're in a good place. We know work's there. And I think, yes, we're looking to our, you know, when it comes to recruitment things, we're looking to our trade association, as we happen to have our new chairman on the line. I think, but actually, I don't believe a corporate approach on anything in our industry is the best way to go. I think a personal responsibility from each employer is probably the best way to do it, and to attract people because you're a good company to work for.
People, make sure that you're spending an awful lot more money on your training than you are on your recruitment. Technology, it's time to tech up, not just in terms of IT in the office and streamlining our infrastructure. That should have been done earlier in the year, but on the ground, and ensure that we're as efficient as we can be. And finally, we're going to focus on the environment. That's what we do. Environment, environment, environment. Whether that be access to it, improving biodiversity, habitat improvements, everything to do with our natural world, whether it be near or in urban spaces or in the countryside. And that's where we see positive growth.
That's why I'm going to carry on doing what I always do, which is that we do a really small number of schemes, and just concentrate on, you know, one garden at a time, because you're only ever as good as your last garden. So fundamentally, I'm not going to massively change that, and then sort of keep an eye on what's going on. I do think that Tom raises a really important point, though, is that the next big issue for our industry is the environment and how we adapt to you know, our working practices. And I think that that is something that we need to modify and change from when we're designing, specifying, building. We have a huge, you know, we have the potential to, well, we're part of the solution, but we're possibly also at the moment maybe slightly part of the problem. But so yeah, I think the environment is going to be the next big thing. Other than that, it's just one garden at a time. Solve the world, one garden at a time.
One garden at a time. Helena?
I think for the RHS slightly different. For us, it's really about bringing people back to the garden, making the shows safe, really identifying what industry needs, helping to promote that. Certainly careers, education, our community, the shows, why you should come along, and really how we can support the industry better moving forward, and also grow our membership base. I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think around the industry there's a lot of people very well placed to help support and take it forward. I think it's about working together to promote what we're doing. So you know, we're mindful over the next couple of years, but we'll do our best just to ensure that we can bring more people in through the industry and deliver the shows, and certainly deliver opportunities for everybody else around the industry as well.
Fingers crossed for you with this show, and I'm sure the whole industry wants to see it. Go ahead. John, final word for you, John.
I think we've got a fantastic opportunity here, but we've got to keep going forward. We've got to improve standards, both on the design side and certainly on the installation side. We've got to make the industry attractive. And if we do that by coming across in a professional manner and losing some of these formulaic designs that have crept in over the last 3 or 4 years, then we'll be on the right trajectory. But at the moment, there's such a variation in standards, and we've got to concentrate on improving standards, consistency of standards. If we can get consistency of standards in the industry, then we will attract people in from all manner of other industries of all age groups. But it starts with a good, strong design. You've got something then to sell to your clients. You can then deliver that to the nth degree, to a very high quality, and then the next scheme will be just around the corner. It's a very simple formula, but it's one that we are failing to achieve.
Well, thank you all very much. Really, really appreciate your support and offering the advice that you do offer to the industry. Well done, and thanks again. So hopefully people have found a way of joining us on the live webinar now to take some questions based on that. Just a couple of facts first of all. So it's the first ever FutureScape virtual. At its peak during those first sessions, where we had 3 different sessions going on at any one time, we had 600 people in over the 3 sessions. So that's fantastic, and thank you to all that. In this session alone, there was up to 200 people at any one time. We have got some questions from the audience that have been emailed in, and I'll get through those first. But watching that back, it's put some questions in my mind, so I'm going to be a bit selfish here and leave myself a couple of minutes at the end to ask a couple of questions that I've got. The first one, though, and I think it may be more to Phil as he mentioned it, why would people chase the price at the moment when it seems that we have lots going on, lots happening over there, and a shortage of contractors that are capable of delivering it? Why would people start lowering their price?
Well, morning everyone. It is a bit of a juxtaposition, really, I suppose. But we are finding that some people in the industry are starting to panic, and I think that's what's driving their behaviour in terms of underpricing, undercutting. I think it's principally, from what we've seen, it's principally the people who will always do that to get a share of the work where they're, putting it bluntly, where their standard of work doesn't allow them to get repeat business. It is a panic. It's as if people think, what are we going to do? COVID-19 is here. We're going to live with it for a long time. We're going to have to win some work. We've all mentioned so far in this seminar that, dare I say it, the make hay while the sun shines again. That it's not my view that that's short-termism. It's just a view on how the short term might be. But if a number of people, as I think they are looking at that and thinking we're going to be short of work after 12, 18 months, we need to do something about it. Then that's leading to the behaviour in some areas that that you mentioned, Jim.
And there's one for John then, which is talking about the consistency, John, and making sure the standards are raised. Again, how as an industry does that happen, and how do you do that? You're always going to get people that do shortcuts, try and screw a bit of profit on that. But how, as an industry, do we make sure that the standards are raised and there is this consistency of delivering every project at every level?
Well, there has to be a will for this to happen, Jim, and I look very much to the main trade association, because quite honestly, the trade association needs to come down harder on its members. It's the trade association that has the key to maintaining and ensuring standards are maintained. And if we went to the football system where you got a red card and you were put on the subs bench for a period of time because you failed to achieve the standard, a good standard, then that would give a severe jolt to the whole of the industry, but it doesn't happen. So I think that the trade association has a major role in this, in achieving consistency, because it's only consistent standards that will drive this industry forward. And it's the lack of consistency that gets it a bad reputation and a bad name. And we need to address that.
Okay. I've got one more question I'll come back to in a minute. I guess Richard and maybe even Tom on this one here then. In terms of supply, people are saying that orders are being placed quite late at the moment for immediate delivery. Are you sensing that? Are you feeling that? Are you getting pressure to deliver quicker? Are contractors leaving ordering to the last minute?
Good morning, everybody. I don't think it's any worse than usual. I think people are giving us reasonable lead times. There's always last-minute.com jobs, but we're geared up to handle that. I think one thing we're seeing this autumn is a big squeeze in the transport industry. There's a lack of hauliers around, a number of drivers have quit the industry, and there's definitely a bit of pressure getting trucks available. But no problem with supply chain with us.
Tom, are you found anything on your new recycling business?
No, we're absolutely fine with the supply chain. Things feel pretty steady, to be honest with you, in the recycled plastics world. Whilst there's been a lot of shortage in timber, there's been no shortage in recycled materials we've found, and been able to supply as usual.
And Helen, I think this one may be coming from someone that's trying to pitch for work. How do you become one of your trusted supplier or trusted landscapers? What do they need to do?
Wow, that's a good question. They need to do the work well, which lots do. You know, lots do it really well. I don't think we should ever forget there are lots of very good quality ones, but there is a long way to go. I agree that there is. We should always, or whatever level you're working at, should always try to improve what you're doing. You know, try and do it to the best of your ability. But yeah, how does somebody get on to one? Well, yeah, do the job well.
Sounds very tough to do it by the cows. Maybe find another designer to work for. So on this tiering, tier 1 and tier 2 contractors, there isn't enough in tier 1, and maybe Phil, I guess this is maybe it fits perfectly with you. How does a contractor push themselves and develop to become a tier 1 contractor? And you know, is that the process that you're going through for your business? Is that where you want to position where your company is?
Where we want to be.
Maybe that's what you...
I think you're absolutely right, Jim. Look, I think we've set out our stall as wanting to be there. We know who the people in the industry are who are our competitors in that respect. How do you do it? Well, of course, go back to what a number of people have said: quality of work. I can't knock on someone's door, a potential client, and say, look, give us a chance, if I'm not able to show them a reference site that lives up to the standards. I was going to say the standards that they expect, actually, but the standard I expect. We've had a couple of instances over the last few months where I've picked up our guys on things that the client has not noticed. And this ties into what another number of other people have said, where we have to, as an industry, raise our standard and keep it there, not just rely on one or two clients who will not necessarily expect that. We have to have the quality of job to show to people as references. We have to build relationships. We have to, something that isn't mentioned that much actually in the commercial world, but you have to build that trust. You have to know that the client and potential clients have to know, whether it's repeat business or otherwise, they've got to know that if they place an order with you, and of course that's not just a question of pricing and expecting an order to come through the post. It's a question of building a relationship through the pricing stage, clarifying and helping the client to put together their bid for their client, if you like, and to make sure that you've got quality pervading all through that process. But it's about being trusted to enter into a contract. You know, there's a lot of talk over the years I've known of people signing a contract and then being proud that they can put it on the top shelf and not even refer to it. I think a good commercial, mature relationship is that everyone knows what's in that contract and sticks to it, but is valued for more than that, i.e. quality and behaviour.
And in terms of taking the risk to step up to those big contracts, why do you think there are not as many people doing that then? What is it, a comfort level? Is it a really big stretch to get to that level, or is it maybe it just takes time for people to progress?
I suppose it does take time because all the elements I've just described have to have a matter of course. They have to run their course. Is it a risk? Certainly, there's investment involved. There's if you want to be a big player, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a large company. But if you want to be a large company, to be able to invest and have the base to operate large, high-end commercial projects and domestic, actually, then you've got to have the backing, the financial backing to be able to invest in that. And that doesn't just mean having the right cash flow to make it work. It also means having the right skills within the business to back up everything you've done at the pre-construction stage to deliver at the construction stage. There aren't many commercial landscape companies at present who are able to have that investment. There are certainly, from what I've seen over the last 6 months, there are a number who would dearly love to do it, but don't have the cash to make it happen.
And John, just on the last thing on that then, has it always been a bit like that though? Has there always only been 2 or 3 contractors that can pitch for those jobs, or is it definitely getting worse?
No, it's definitely getting worse. There have always been a core of half a dozen or so contractors nationwide that can take on the larger schemes. A lot of that, as Phil has alluded to, is the financial backing and the financial strength. But it's definitely getting worse, and it's getting worse because people have become risk averse. They've drifted into the maintenance sector, the service sectors, etc., where there's less risk. And therefore, why would you want to, if that's your core business going forward, why would you want to put that at risk by taking on some of these high-end private and or commercial developments? A lot of it is the paper money that you need on these schemes, the performance bonds, etc. These are the killers, Jim, and that's always been the case. But you know, to put 15% performance bond on the contract, as happens, that's 15% of that value of the contract comes straight off your working overdraft if you do it through a bank. And this is what people forget. So that's your working overdraft facility. If you do a bond through a bank, is reduced dramatically, and that hurts. If you do it through an insurance company, paying a high-end premium. But nonetheless, it's financial clout that you need, and it's often it's paper money. And that's what a lot of companies can't put up.
Okay. And I'm going to just go back to Helen then quickly on this one. I think one of the questions that came in, Helen, is do you think the industry is, I think I know the answer, but I am going to ask it. Do you think the industry is putting too much emphasis on trying to get young people into it rather than looking elsewhere? Or do you just think it should have the same emphasis, but we should maybe look a bit wider than what we're doing?
I think we want to, it's about encouraging the right people in the industry with a diverse set of talents. And some of them are going to be young and some of them are going to be moving from other sectors. We want people with a diverse skill set. That's the key. We should be talking about who we want, not just sort of saying, you know, come in if you're young and come in if you can't think of anything else to do. We should be saying we want high caliber people. And we should be open to where they come from. It's madness to limit ourselves to young people.
And Richard, and just picking up on one of John's points, and maybe a bit unfair to ask you direct straight away after hearing it, but do you think Barley do need to do more about driving the standards?
Well, we do have a complaints procedure where it is used, where some of Barley's customers do complain to Barley HQ, and there's a procedure which we go through there to see if they're valid, and then work with arbitration between the client and the Barley contractors to get these resolved. I'm not sure how you would actually raise the standards across the nation. I do not think that the architects have got a role to play a lot to make sure the standards are met on site and done to spec. But I do agree that, you know, if the industry performed better to a better standard, it would drive the whole industry up.
Okay. I'm going to wrap it up now. Just there's a couple of things. We've been speaking to lots of landscapers and designers at the moment, and I definitely feel there's a buzz and there is enthusiasm for the sector. You know, there are companies that I see are physically investing in development and changing what they do and progressing it. And I think, like John said, they've used the last 6 months to sort of reposition themselves and come out. So, you know, the issue has to be, there are everywhere you look, if you pick up any paper, you look at any news feed, it's all about the environment, and as Tom said, environment, which is perfect. But how do we make sure, and this is the last question to everyone, how do we make sure we don't miss this opportunity now? Because in 6 months or in a year's time, there might be some new government discussion, you know, like Brexit was 2 years ago. How do we make sure now that we maximise the opportunity that the landscaping industry has because of all what's gone on and all this about the environment? So I'm going to start off with John. Hope that makes sense, by the way, John.
Yeah, it's difficult, Jim, because we shouldn't just start doing this. This should be the ethos of the whole of the industry, you know, quality. And I don't know why so many contractors and designers, it's not just contractors, it's across the industry and suppliers, why they don't aim for quality. Quality is the key, and that's the end of it. Quality brings in work. Quality brings in trust from clients. Quality is everything. And if people embrace that, and they should embrace it, they should have been embracing this for years. It shouldn't just happen because of COVID. That's an excuse. The industry has it has had the ability to reposition itself. Take breath, take stock. And if this industry doesn't take advantage, full advantage of the quality route, then it's going to fail. End of.
Jim, just bringing it back to the environment question, and the fact that the industry is steered that way. We at Maiden Croft focus on the environment. We are an environmental landscaping business. We're not a traditional landscaping business. If more traditional landscaping businesses want to fight over the same traditional contracts, that's up to them. But there is new money and funds coming from all sorts of new areas. There's air quality money now. There's water quality money. There's public health money. There is environmental money. There is so many new areas that we can venture into as an industry with the existing outdoor skills that we have as a business, that there is a bigger sector than competing over traditional grounds maintenance contracts and landscaping contracts. And I think that businesses that aren't waking up to improving biodiversity and looking at more ecological focused schemes and the way that they work are going to be caught out and being left behind.
Tom, this isn't about the sectors and where the money's coming from. You can plant a whip well, you can plant a whip badly. And that's the point.
Absolutely. I think the point was that we're working on whips. And we are going to be planting millions of trees.
Tom,
we're presuming here that we do all know the quality of work that needs to be done. Both Phil, you and I run very successful, large contracting-based as well as design-based businesses. And we know that quality should be a given. That is what we focus on. But we're talking about which sectors we can tap into if we don't want to be competing for the same jobs like Phil had mentioned at the beginning of this conversation.
I'll give Richard a chance to come in terms of how do you think the landscaping sector needs to maximise its opportunities at the moment?
Well, I suppose some of it's going to be down to capacity, isn't it? You know, we're definitely seeing inquiries for these new schemes that are coming out, and like Tom said, there's different pockets of money coming out, which is great. But we are pricing them, our clients are pricing them, but ultimately it'll come down to capacity. People, our top clients, all seem to have got a workload of 12 to 18 months on the books already. I just hope that the government stick to their party line and keep the funding coming for these new schemes that they're committed to. But there's only so many hours in a day people can work, isn't there?
For me, there needs to be a way that it's enshrined in law that there is a percentage of new builds, percentage of whatever has to be spent on green space, environmental, that kind of issue. And if we can get to that, then it's fantastic. If we can't get to that, my worry is that in a year down the line, 2 years down the line, that the emphasis of the government and everything moves, and we're left thinking, why didn't we hit home when we had the big opportunity, which I feel is now. And I understand, and I feel really, really honoured to sit here and look at the panel that we've got today, and I really do appreciate the fact that you're there. You're all about the industry, about improving the industry and increasing everybody, not being very selfish. And I really, really thank you all for spending that time and effort and, being very honest and open about it. And really pleased. It's just, it feels that everything in here needs to be out in the open. Everything that we talk about, all the fantastic things that we do, we're just talking to ourselves in a way and to people that are already converted. There is issues in terms of improving quality. There is issues in terms of opening our eyes up in terms of recruitment, in terms of diversity of who we recruit, age, sex, whatever. We need to make sure that we work a lot harder. And I feel that as running Pro Landscaper and FutureScape, there is a lot more that we need to do. But on the whole, I think it's a fantastic set of people and a real good reflection on the panellists. So I am going to leave it there. I thank you all very, very much indeed. I really do appreciate the time and effort. Please, everyone else, stay with us for the next seminars and the next thing. At 11 o'clock, we have 85 suppliers wanting to talk to you. So please go, and they're the people that are paying for this and actually making sure that we can produce it. So please go and visit them. All this will be recorded. It is recorded, sorry, and it's live, and you will be able to download and go back and listen to it. If anyone's got any questions that haven't got answered, please feel free to come through us and then we'll post it on. But again, thank you all very much for watching, And thank you very much, panel, for being part of it.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.